He was the man every single mother dreamed of. Handsome, charming, successful, and absolutely devoted to his new family. When David Fuller married his wife, he didn't just become a husband, he became the perfect stepfather, doting on her children as if they were his own. Friends and neighbors saw a picture of a perfect family, a testament to second chances and finding true love. He was known in their Kent community as a kind, gentle soul, a hospital electrician who spent his days fixing vital equipment and his evenings being a model family man. No one, not his wife, not his stepchildren, not his colleagues, had any reason to suspect the monstrous secret he was hiding. For decades, David Fuller lived a double life. And when the truth finally came out, it sent a wave of horror and disbelief not just through his quiet town, but across the entire nation. The story begins in the late 1980s in Tunbridge Wells, a picturesque town in Kent. This was the era of the Bedsit murders, a pair of brutal crimes that had left the community terrified and baffled police for years. The victims were young women, Wendy Nell and Caroline Pierce, both attacked and murdered in their own homes. The cases were eerily similar, yet the killer left behind almost no forensic evidence. For over 30 years, the files grew cold. The families of Wendy and Carolyn were left with no answers. It's just a gaping hole of grief, and the constant nagging question of who could have done such a thing. As the years turned into decades, hope for justice faded. The community moved on. The memory of the terror subsided, but the mystery remained, a dark chapter in the town's history. And all the while, the man responsible was hiding in plain sight, building a life, raising a family, and earning the trust of everyone around him. David Fuller's life on the surface was utterly unremarkable. He was born in 1954 and had a passion for photography from a young age. He held various jobs before settling into a long-term career as an electrician at the Kent and Sussex Hospital and later at the Tunbridge Wells Hospital. He was considered reliable, hard-working, and quiet. He married, had children, and then divorced. When he met his second wife, he seemed to have found his calling as a family man. He was the stepfather who attended school plays, helped with homework, and was always ready with a supportive word. He was the friendly neighbor who would always say hello, the colleague who got the job done without any fuss. This carefully constructed facade was his greatest weapon. It was an impenetrable shield of normality that allowed him to carry out unspeakable acts without raising a single shred of suspicion. Who would ever suspect the mild-mannered hospital electrician of being a monster? The breakthrough in the cold case came, as it so often does, from an advancement in DNA technology. In 2019, a new push was made to solve the Bedsit murders. Police were able to develop a partial DNA profile from the crime scenes. While it wasn't a direct match to anyone on the national database, it was enough to start a painstaking process of familial DNA searching. This technique allows investigators to identify potential relatives of a suspect, dramatically narrowing down the pool of persons of interest. The search led them to one of Fuller's relatives, and from there, the net began to close. In December 2020, over 3 decades after the murders, police arrived at David Fuller's home. They took a DNA sample. The result was a 1 in a billion match. The quiet, respectable family man was the killer they had been hunting for 33 years. His arrest sent shockwaves through his family and community. It was simply incomprehensible. But the full extent of Fuller's depravity was yet to be revealed. The murder charges were just the beginning. During a search of his home, police made a discovery that was more horrifying than they could have ever imagined. They found 4 hard drives and countless floppy disks, containing a meticulously organized archive of his secret life. It was a library of horrors. Fuller had filmed and photographed himself abusing the bodies of the deceased in the hospital morgues where he worked. This wasn't a recent activity. The evidence showed he had been committing these acts for at least 12 years, from 2008 to 2020. But investigators believe it likely started much earlier. The scale of his crimes was staggering. He had violated at least 102 women and girls in the morgues, their ages ranging from just 9 years old to 100. He had preyed on them at their most vulnerable, in a place where they should have been treated with dignity and respect. The evidence was undeniable. Fuller had used his Alaxis pass as a hospital maintenance worker to enter the mortuaries late at night. He knew the schedules, he knew where the cameras were, and he knew how to avoid detection. He kept detailed records, not just of the attacks, but of his victims' names. He would search for them on Facebook, learning about their lives, their families, and their friends. This twisted ritual added another layer of psychological violation. He wasn't just desecrating bodies, he was invading the memories of living people, stealing the sanctity of their grief. He targeted the bodies of those who had died from illness, accidents, and even those who were victims of other crimes. For the families, this revelation was a second, unimaginable trauma. Their final goodbyes, their last memories, were now tainted by the knowledge of what Fuller had done. When the case went to court, David Fuller initially denied the murders of Wendy Nell and Caroline Pierce. However, facing the overwhelming DNA evidence, he eventually changed his plea to guilty. For the charges of necrophilia, there was no defense. The sheer volume of digital evidence he had created himself sealed his fate. The courtroom heard gut-wrenching impact statements from the families of all his victims. The families of Wendy and Caroline spoke of a lifetime of pain, of decades spent wondering and waiting for justice. And the families of the mortuary victims spoke of a unique and profound horror. They described the feeling of betrayal, the violation of trust in the institutions meant to care for their loved ones, and the struggle to reconcile the memory of their family member with the horrific acts committed against them. England listened in stunned silence. The story dominated the news, each detail more disturbing than the last. The perfect stepfather was now known as the morgue monster. In December 2021, David Fuller was sentenced to 2 whole life orders for the murders, meaning he will never be released from prison. He received an additional concurrent sentence for his other crimes. The judge described his actions as ones of unimaginable depravity, stating that he had no regard for the dignity of the dead. The case led to a nationwide outcry and an independent inquiry into how Fuller was able to commit his crimes undetected for so long within the National Health Service. The inquiry aimed to uncover systemic failures and recommend changes to ensure nothing like this could ever happen again. Security protocols, staff access to sensitive areas, and pre-employment checks all came under intense scrutiny. For the families, the legal process was over, but the emotional healing was a journey that would last a lifetime. The support groups were formed, and a sense of shared trauma brought many of the victims' families together. The David Fuller case serves as a chilling reminder that evil can wear the most ordinary of masks. It shatters our assumptions about who we can trust and exposes the vulnerabilities in the systems we rely on. It's a story about the profound resilience of victims' families, who endured decades of uncertainty and then a second wave of horror, yet still found the strength to face the perpetrator in court and demand justice. It also highlights the incredible power of forensic science, which can reach back through time to solve the coldest of cases. The shock that rippled through England was not just about the crimes themselves, but about the deception. How could a man live such a successful double life for so long? How could a husband, stepfather, and colleague be capable of such profound evil? The questions linger, a dark shadow cast by the man who was, for all appearances, the perfect stepfather. Thank you for watching. If this story has brought up difficult emotions, please know that help is available. We'll leave links to mental health and victim support resources in the description below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the cases that shaped our world. Stay safe.